Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our noon Zoom, especially those of you that are joining us for the first time. We hope you've enjoyed the other three presentations this year on polio, setting up an Instagram account, and on celebrating International Women's Day, Women's Leadership in Rotary. All of these prior webinars, along with today's presentation, are or will be available on the District 6330 YouTube channel. Before we get started today, just a couple of housekeeping items. Registration is open for the district conference June 23rd through the 25th. The website is d6330conference.org. I'll paste that address in the chat. You may wish to bookmark this site because it'll be used for future conferences. The Rotary Club of Flint and the other Area 7 clubs are looking forward to your arrival next month. Just a reminder that our district annual business meeting is scheduled for June the 15th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Invitation have been sent to all club executives along with the eligible voting list by clubs. For some of you, this may be the last time I see or talk to you before my term ends June 30th. So I just wanted to convey my thanks for the warm reception I received as I traveled the district, your encouragement and support, and your kind words and warm wishes this year. Little did I realize that our program theme of Imagine Rotary would imagine me having the time of my life. I have been blessed in numerous ways this year, and serving as your district governor is certainly in the top three. I'd like to turn it over to District Governor-elect Sonia Glass. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Mike, and I look forward to having the time of my life next year and to visiting all the clubs in the district. I did want to mention to you very briefly that we are putting together a visioning team for the district, and that's going to be near the end of September. So for those of you who are looking to establish strategic plans, start thinking about that and reach out to us so that we can get that into our calendars. Purpose of strategic plan is to help your club to establish your goals for the next few years. It'll help you provide clarity and focus on what your club's working on, help you with decision making, resource allocation, communication, etc. And so we look forward to hearing from you about visioning over the next year. Thanks, Mike.
You're muted. You're muted, Mike.
I muted myself because I have a snoring dog behind me. So it's my pleasure to turn things over to District Governor nominee Catherine Hahn to kick off our program and introduce today's speakers.
Yay. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I did put in the chat box that this is a webinar, and so if you have questions or answers, you're going to need to put them either in the Q&A panel or the chat panel. That all of our attendees will be muted. So just a little housekeeping note for you there. So this afternoon, I have the privilege of introducing our honored guest speakers. We have, we have RI President nominee Stephanie Urchick and Tom Gump, Aide to the Rotary International President 2024-25, which is Stephanie. Both Stephanie and Tom have a long list of accomplishments and contributions. So I'm just going to highlight a few because we really want to hear them, not me. So Stephanie is a member of the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania. She joined Rotary in 1991. In 2022, she retired as the partner and chief operating officer of Doctors at Work, a consulting and training company. She has served Rotary as the Rotary Foundation trustee and as an RI director. She has also served in numerous capacities. The list is pretty extensive, but includes a training leader, regional foundation coordinator, and an RI president's representative, among the very very small list of all the things she's accomplished. Stephanie has participated in a variety of international service projects, including an NID, National Immunization Days, in India and Nigeria. In Vietnam, she worked with clubs to help build a primary school and traveled to the Dominican Republic to install water filters. She is a a fluent speaker of several Slavic languages, and in that capacity, she has been able to mentor new Rotary members in the Ukraine and coordinated a Rotary Foundation grant project for mammography equipment and biopsy unit for a hospital in Poland. Stephanie is currently helping to partner clubs and districts in the U.S. with the clubs in Kosovo, Albania, and in the Ukraine for humanitarian and educational services. She wants to see 100,000 more Rotary members in her year 2024-25. She believes that the magic of Rotary happens at the club level, where the people are serving their communities. Stephanie is a major donor and a member of the Quest Society of the Rotary Foundation. We also have with us Tom Gump. He is an accomplished Rotarian as well, with a long-standing commitment to growing membership, promoting public image, eradicating polio, and inspiring leadership. So like Stephanie, Tom has a long list of roles he has played in Rotary. Currently, he is on the Rotary International's Membership Growth Committee. He founded, helped form, and inspired dozens of new and creative clubs around the world, including forming the first club in the world to serve veterans and the first club in the world focused on ending human trafficking. Tom also formed Rotary Community Corps for Refugees, which serves hundreds of refugees in Minnesota. He is one of only 95 Rotarians in the world to be named to the gold level of membership society for new member sponsors, bringing in more than 50 active members into his club. Tom has played a significant role in fundraising efforts for the Rotary Foundation and its End Polio Now campaign. The TRF trustees awarded Tom the citation for meritorious service in recognition of outstanding service to the foundation. Tom serves as one of two presidential advisors to the Rotary International's Calgary Convention and a committee, and the Rotary International Board of Directors awarded Tom its highest honor, the Service Above Self Award. So his impressive contributions to Rotary and the TRF make him a valuable member of these organizations and an inspiration to all of us. So please join me in welcoming Stephanie and Tom.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for that wonderful welcome. And Tom and I are delighted to be with you this afternoon. You know, District 6330 has a place in my heart because not so long ago, I was also in your zone. So I know many people who are on the call, and I look forward to seeing all of you someplace in the Rotary world. This afternoon, Tom and I are going to share some ideas with you about club culture and how to transform it if necessary, and why it's important to think about this topic. It's simple yet profound. You know, when we take a look at the reasons that people leave Rotary clubs, typically the number one reason comes back that it's the environment of the club. It's the culture in the club. People haven't had their expectations met, or there's something happening in the club that doesn't fit with their personal expectation. And so what is this thing called culture? Well, it really is the combination of all the beliefs and attitudes that your club members have. And how you can tell if your club is in good shape is if things are running smoothly. If you are getting grants approved, if your membership is growing, if your contributions to the Rotary Foundation keep happening, and you're supporting polio eradication, if all of those things are happening, then chances are that there are some good elements to your environment. But if one or more of those areas aren't where you think they should be, it might mean that we need to take a look at the culture of the club, and maybe there are some things that need to be tweaked. So you'll see right now that there's a picture of a young lady on the screen, and she's crossing her arms. So what I'd like you to do is the same thing, just cross your arms. Now, when you did that, some of you put your left hand over your right, and some of you put your right hand over your left. So whatever you did, do the opposite right now. Tom, how did that make you feel when I asked you to switch?
Very uncomfortable, much like when my wife makes me take yoga class.
Well, if change is so uncomfortable, then why are we asking Rotary clubs to consider changing things?
Well, Stephanie, over the last 3 years, we've been taking Rotary International has been taking surveys. And what we found out is the number one reason that people leave their club is because of the club culture or the club environment.
That's absolutely correct. So how do we begin this whole process of examining our club's culture? Well, we start with an important tool called assessment. And assessment is really asking our members what they feel about the things that are happening. And it's important to do assessments. Generally, we suggest you do it once a year, just to be sure that your club is still on track. And this is really how you get to the starting point. This is very much like going on a diet. If you're going to decide to lose or gain weight, you really need to step on the scale before you start, because you need to know what the beginning point is. Then you engage in the activities to do whatever you're doing, losing or gaining, and then you get back on the scale to see if you've made any progress. This is the same thing that happens when we do a club assessment.
Well, you're absolutely right, Stephanie. And I'm not saying that just because you're my Rotary boss. But I don't know if we can tell Rotarians to get on a scale. That seems insulting. But it is really important because assessment, which we often call survey in layman's term, will tell us what needs to be changed, why we need to change it, and how we can actually change it. So it's interesting. We received a call from an individual president last year, and he was president of a small club, 22 people in his club. And he was telling us that he had an issue. And the issue was that half of his club wanted to do away with the four-way test, and the other half wanted to keep the four-way test. So he asked us what advice we can give him. So we told him he should conduct a survey. And it's interesting because the survey showed that there were only 2 people that responded that said they wanted to do away with the four-way test, and the other respondents did not. So sometimes it might seem like half the club wants something, but when you do a survey, you actually find out that it might be just a few loud, vocal people who are against something. And that's important because you can, first of all, let your members feel like they're being listened to, feel like they belong, because you're asking them their opinion. Because the survey will ask certain things such as, do you like the time we meet? Do you like the place we meet? Do you like our socials? Do you like our service projects? It doesn't have to be complicated. And if you have a small club, like the one we were just talking about in that example, you could just pick up the phone and ask those questions. Now, yesterday we were talking to India. The Rotary Club of Madras had 280 people in their club. They've been around 95 years, a vibrant, thriving club. But of course, it would take a long time to call up 280 people. So Rotary has given us different types of assessment tools. And we added a new one this year called the Entrance Survey. And that was the brainchild of our current Rotary International President, Jennifer Jones. And Stephanie and I, when we speak around the world, we asked districts such as yours, we asked them, do they ever conduct surveys? And the majority actually do not conduct any surveys. And when we ask them when they conduct their surveys, they usually say it's exit interviews. So when members are leaving a club, they ask them, why are you leaving? Well, Stephanie would say this in more harsh words. She would likely say, that's stupid, quote unquote.
It is stupid. It's very stupid.
And you're right, Stephanie, because at that point, the individual or individuals are leaving the club, so we can't make any corrective changes to keep them in. And also, we know our Rotarians are good, kind people, and sometimes they might not give you the honest reason of why they're leaving. So we suggest, Rotary International suggests that you conduct a survey once a year. Why? Because every year your club is changing. There's new members that are coming into your club, and there's members that are leaving your club. So what the product that we're delivering, the club experience, may change depending on who composes our club. And Stephanie always says, Rotary is like a business. And we're trying to deliver the best product we can, the best club experience we can. So let's do the assessments, ask them what they want, and then give them what they want. Because after all, it doesn't make any sense to do an assessment and then not act on it. So they feel like they belong when they're asked, but when you actually make one of the changes, then you have those Rotarians. They stick around for a long time. So Stephanie, do you want to tell us about a fight or flight?
Sure. So Tom's been talking about, doing an assessment and why it's important to find out what our club members think about what's happening. Well, when you do that, you're going to find out one of two things. You're either going to find out that, hey, things are great. Our club is moving along. There's a lot of activity. We're growing. And foundation giving is great. We're in good shape. And that's fine. Or you might find out that there are some areas that may need some examination. Maybe there are some things that you'd like to do just a little bit differently. And this is no different than any other situation in life when we examine it. And we come up with what's called the fight or flight response. Do you make a decision to stay and fight to change the culture in your club a little bit so that it begins to move in the right direction? Or have you come to the conclusion that things are so beyond hope in your club that it's time to take off? And that's called flight. My personal story here, I will share it with you. I'm in my third Rotary Club. When I first joined Rotary, I joined the Rotary Club of California, PA. And as an aside, one of the members in that club was past Rotary International President Chuck Keller. So, wasn't I lucky? I had a Rotary godfather in my club. Anytime I didn't understand what was happening or there was an acronym, I'd say, Chuck, what does that mean? So it was fabulous. And I really enjoyed being in that club. I was there for 10 years. But then I had a job change and I needed to move closer to where I was employed. And I got into another club. And they were very nice people. But by that time, I was a past district governor. And I was making suggestions because they weren't very active. They weren't doing anything. They were doing virtually nothing in community service and nothing in international service. And so I would suggest things. And as you can imagine, because of the culture in that club, were not interested in making any changes. And I was becoming frustrated. My problem was that I didn't find any what Tom and I call champions. There weren't any other people in the club who were interested in making some changes. So I finally decided that the thing for me to do would be to take off. And so I chose the flight option. But unlike most Rotarians, I didn't leave Rotary. I had ideas about other clubs and I investigated, and I ended up in the Rotary Club of McMurray, which is a very active club, growing club. And I've been there over 10 years and I really enjoy being a part of that club. But there is something that happens in this process, and it's the moment when you first decide or first realize that something's wrong. And that's the moment called the freeze. And that is, as I mentioned, that's the exact moment when you say, wow, there's something happening here and I need to decide what I'm going to do. And you evaluate everything and then you decide, do I want to stay here and deal with the issues and can I be successful? Or can I find other people in the club who have influence, who can be champions and can help promote what I'm suggesting? And if the answer is yes, then you know that your answer to the big question is to stay and make sure that you work to create some of these changes in the club to change the culture. And if the answer isn't, then you have a couple of options. One of them, of course, is to look for another club, or another option would be to think about starting a different club to go out and create the kind of environment and culture that you're seeking.
Well, thank you very much, Stephanie.
Tom, I think you have some ideas about starting new clubs.
I do, but we had a very insightful comment from David in the chat. And so it's funny, the weekend before last, I was in Windsor, Ontario, which is basically South Detroit. At the hotel we're staying, you can look across the river and see South Detroit. And I had to laugh to myself because my walk-up music they played was Journey, Don't Stop Believing. And there's a line in that song that actually says, born and raised in South Detroit. And I didn't realize when I first heard that song, I always thought it said born and raised to self-destruct. So I say that because David has a good point. When he was talking about exit surveys, he was saying that those are important as well. So I'm sorry if my comments or my jokes made it sound like I didn't think those were important. Because of course, when people are leaving, we could gain insightful knowledge from them. So of the 7 assessment tools, that's one of the 7 and it's still there and it is important. We were just saying that it's important to do it all the way along. So Stephanie, do you want to tell your story about the mayor in New York?
Yeah, if some of you on the call may have remember or will remember, there was a mayor in New York by the name of Ed Koch. And one of the things he was famous for would be to just stand on the street corner and talk to people and say, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? And that was his signature line. And he did that because he was interested in hearing what people had to say about his performance as governor. So from time to time, that's what we in Rotary need to do. We need to step back and say, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? And ask our club members for their opinions and their input.
And I think that's such a great example because it proves David's point that exit surveys are important and entrance surveys are important. And the surveys we do of our board, the membership satisfaction survey, or the ones that we do of our members, they're all important. And the reason why Ed Koch was so successful as a politician, because he did it regularly. So it's hard when you're asked to talk about all of membership and do it within 20 or 30 minutes, but it's important when something's pointed out that we take a step back and say what's important. So Stephanie was talking about what we do with our clubs and the changes we make to make our clubs better. So one thing that we are going to talk about now is why we would start new clubs. But I just want to clarify that, you know, what Stephanie calls legacy clubs, what I call traditional clubs, they're the backbone of Rotary. They've been around for a long time. And even though I've formed new clubs, I never left my club that I love, which is a legacy traditional club, because I have my lifelong friends there. But there's a saying that Stephanie and I like, which is sometimes it's easier to give birth than to raise the dead. And that's the quote of the year, Stephanie. And I haven't done either of those. I haven't given birth and I haven't raised the dead. But what I have done is I've started new clubs, and I've learned a lot through making mistakes of how to start new clubs. But one thing I've learned is the reason why you start new clubs. And I just want to give you a few reasons here. First, new clubs grow Rotary quickly. When we started the Network for Empowering Women, which was a Rotary club in our district, we added 50 members at one time. It would take a long time to add 50 individual members to an existing club. And also, many of these new clubs retain members longer than our traditional legacy clubs. And you might ask yourself why? Well, the reason is because a lot of these are cause-based clubs. And when I say cause-based, I mean a club that's based around a cause. So its speakers are about that cause. The service project the club does is about that cause. You know, we started the first ever club in the world to serve veterans. And just last week, we had a service day where they were doing blood donations, clothing drive, book drives, small electronic drives. These are mission-driven people, so they usually do 4 or 5 drives at once. Well, some of those members drove over 2.5 hours to get to that service project, and they do the same thing with socials. And, you know, most of our traditional clubs that meet Monday through Friday over a fixed cost meal, usually breakfast or lunch, most of those individuals either work near that area or they live near that area. And the new clubs are just doing it a little bit different. Also, these new clubs attract younger and more diverse members. You know, when I was district governor, we added 8 new clubs to our district during that year. And one of our main goals for the year is we wanted to reach or get as close as we can, at least move the needle towards more gender parity, meaning having equal men and women members. We just felt like that diversity of thought would make us a better organization in our district. So we went from 28% female to just over 32% female in 1 year. So at the end of the year, we wanted to keep that going. So we did an analysis to find out, what clubs did the women gravitate towards? And it turns out that our environmental club had over 50% female membership. Our club to end human trafficking had over 60% female membership. And our network for empowering women that I just mentioned, it had almost 70%, at 69.2% female. So those three clubs actually move the needle. And now it's easy to track those, the gender parity, because we asked that question on our incoming membership documents. So Rotary International has those statistics. We don't do race calculations because under US law, that's a privacy issue. But when you get on the web, and because a lot of these clubs are electronic clubs, meaning it's a different type of club and it meets mostly virtually as opposed to a hybrid or in person. When you get on a Zoom call with these new clubs, you can tell it's a lot more diverse. And that's what younger people want. And it's funny because, our traditional club, we do certain things, and I love my club, never left it and won't leave it. We do things like we pack sandwiches for the hungry. We rake leaves for people who can't do it themselves. We pick up trash along the highway. But I tell you, if we go to a millennial and say, join our club, we pick up trash, it doesn't work. And why is that? Because millennials want to have great impact, but they want to have great impact in the area that's important to them, like the environment. So these new clubs can actually focus on something that is important to them. So we can go out in the community and reach out to these potential people of action and meet them where they are and design a club, not like ours, but around what works for them. So another reason why new clubs are great, because they expand our reach out into the community. When we started the first ever club in the world to end human trafficking, and now they're popping up all over, like the veterans clubs. I wish I could have said that I woke up one morning and said, we're going to start a human trafficking club. That's not how it worked. What happened was we had 3 districts, and mine was one of them. And the individuals who ran a program from those 3 districts to end human trafficking, they came to me one day and said, we're quitting Rotary. And I'm like, what? You can't quit Rotary. Why would you want to quit Rotary? And they said, you don't understand. We're not a club, so we can't get district grants. We can't get global grants. We can't really have our speakers that we want. We might place one speaker in a club once a year, but that's about all, because our traditional clubs do so many great things in different areas like literacy and water. So when we started this club, it went really well. And about 2 weeks after we started it, we were inducting a woman from Turkey. And everyone was excited because that was one of the countries that wasn't represented in our current club membership. About 20 minutes after that, I received an email from the then sitting Rotary International president, Mark Daniel Maloney, letting me know that that was his sister we just inducted. And he confided in me that he had been trying to get her into Rotary for 40 years, 40 years. So 4 decades. But why didn't she join? Because she taught American history in Turkey, and she could only meet at night. So she needed a virtual option. And the other thing is she wanted to focus, for her, the issue that was most important that she wanted to spend all her time working on, all her free time, was ending human trafficking. So we can do this with these areas. I mean, just imagine in District 6330, if you reached out to individuals who wanted to have, maybe one for each area of focus. You can do that. You could also increase the reach by, reaching out to alumni of your events, peace fellows in your area, a youth exchange host families, Rotex, whatever it is. But we can expand Rotary in District 6330 and around the world if we do those things. So in keeping with that imagine thing, let's imagine the different kind of clubs we can start. Lastly, new clubs increase our opportunity to partner. We wanted to start a Rotaract club of young professionals around the world that wanted to work on the environment. Why? Because when we asked younger people, listen to what they wanted to work on the environment. So it wasn't hard to do. We just called up SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and asked them if they had any young people. Why? Because an action group, they help you fund projects. They give you strategies on how to do the projects, but they don't actually do projects. And younger people join a Rotary Club because they want to do something. They actually want to put their hands in that dirt and plant that tree, not just tell other people how to get the money to buy the trees. And this is not just for Rotary clubs, it's for Rotaract too. We started recently a Rotaract club to serve those with autism and their families. So sorry that took a little bit of time, but the main takeaway is it's not hard to start a new Rotary or Rotaract club. And there's people, your membership chair, this wonderful district governor line, there's a lot of people to help you, your Rotary coordinator, assistant Rotary coordinators. But Stephanie, how do we get buy-in either for a new club or for a change in an existing club?
Well, before I address buy-in, I just want to make a comment. Tom has spent a lot of time talking about forming new clubs, which is his special area of expertise. And the reason we include that in this presentation is because when you do that, you have an opportunity to create the culture from scratch. But let's face it, most of us who are on this call are probably in what Tom calls a traditional club. I call it a legacy club. Our clubs have been around for a long time, and we have a certain kind of tradition that's associated with our club. So we also need to figure out, how do we go about making sure that the culture in our club is appropriate for the times we're in and for the members that we have. So one of the things we talked about early on was, asking people, doing an assessment and asking people for their opinion. Another way to look at that is it's called buy-in. And that's really an important strategy because buy-in gives you two important elements. First of all, it gives you information. When you ask your club members, what do you think? They are going to give you that information. But the second thing it does is it gives you an opportunity to provide a way for people to be heard. And that's what creates the buy-in. In this country, we have a saying that people don't wash rental cars. Well, we don't because we don't own them. But when you give people an opportunity to be a part of a discussion, to provide an opinion, that's what creates the buy-in. That's what creates the ownership. So then when your club does suggest some small changes or some ways of doing things differently, even if you haven't used a single thing that a member suggested, the fact that you gave them the opportunity to provide input is what creates the buy-in and what creates the ownership. And it will be easier for that person to jump on the bandwagon. So one of the things we also mentioned is that it's very important to find people of influence in your club, other members who we call them the spark plugs. They're the people who will listen to suggestions and help to get other members in the club to rally around that same idea. And you know who the spark plugs are in your club. They're not difficult to identify. When you look around your club, these are going to be the people who are creative, who are constantly making suggestions, who are the ones who are the best speakers, the ones who commit to, oh yeah, I'll work on this social, I'll do that. Tom has a list up here now. They're not afraid to try things. They're not members who are going to say, oh, we've never done that before. Just the opposite. They're interested in looking for ways to promote continuous improvement in your club. So when you look for these members, we say these are the members who become your spark plugs. But in addition to spark plugs, you also may want to look for members who can become catalysts for the change that you're suggesting. Now, a catalyst is a person who actually helps remove any kind of barrier, any kind of resistance to change that might be happening in the club. Say, for instance, after doing an assessment, several members say, well, there are too many little bickerings going on in the club. There's this undertone. There's too much going on, and you find some spark plugs who agree and say, yes, we've got to do something and change the culture because there's too much of this bickering going on. Your catalyst might be the person who says, well, in Rotary's Learning Center, there is a course on microaggressions. And next week, I'm going to bring my laptop. And if anybody else wants to bring a laptop, I'm going to show you how to access that course. We're going to go into my Rotary and we'll get into the Learning Center and I'll show you where it is. And it's an opportunity for you to gain some expertise and some information and some understanding about how we can begin to change the culture in our club. So you need both. You need people who are going to be your spark plugs as well as people who can serve as catalysts to help you remove barriers.
Stephanie, we had a great point made by Dennis. So many times when we're talking about membership, we talk about targeting younger individuals for members, which of course is important. What we need to do is we need to bring in everybody possibly that we can that is the right fit for a Rotary. And he brought up a point that a lot of times recent retirees who have lots of expertise and knowledge from their careers, and also sometimes some valuable resources, both in time, talent, and dollars for the Rotary Foundation. So we need to make sure that when we discuss membership, our members don't think we're only targeting younger individuals, because everyone can serve as long as they got the heart for service.
Well, that's correct, Dennis. Diversity has many, many, many definitions. It's not simply race. It's not simply age. It's not simply gender. It's really a lot of different things. One of the things that I always say to people when we talk about membership growth is that you want to find people who have the heart and the hands for service. And if that's what they have, then they can find a place in Rotary. Because we've expanded our reach, there's a place for them. Some people, as Tom mentioned, can't come to noontime meetings. Some people don't like meetings at all, but we have really been creative in Rotary. It started with our Council on Legislation in 2016. And that's the council that created all the different club types and models with passport clubs and e-clubs and different things. And now we've even gone beyond that. We have in Great Britain and Ireland, they've created something called the Hub, where you actually can join an online platform and you're not a member of any club, but you're doing the work of Rotary. So really, the bottom line is, if you have the heart and hands for service, there's all kinds of opportunities for you to become a Rotarian and share in this magic.
Tom and Stephanie, Charlene Gordon has posted a question in the Q&A that you may have missed. Is there a role for Probus in helping Rotary culture and or cultural shifts?
I'm sorry, is there a role for what?
Probus.
Probus. I'm not sure what it is.
Tom, do you know?
I'm sorry, I do not.
So was it Charlene who made the comment? Maybe Charlene would like to post in the chat a little bit more about what that organization is. And, once we learn more about it, I'm sure we can find an answer. Probus, group of retired Rotarians. So that's something new.
No, actually, and I've just been unmuted. Probus has been around for a long time. It was started in the UK in the early 60s.
Okay.
We have a Probus here in Stratford, and that's why I'm aware of it. And we actually have some of our Rotarians are members of both clubs. it focuses more on social interactions, and I think you've referenced that younger Rotarians are the people of action, whereas sometimes when you're getting into your later years, you're still enthusiastic, but maybe you're slowing down on the action side of things. So could Probus be a better fit for meeting some of the social needs that long-serving older Rotarians have been accustomed to receiving through regular noon hour or evening or breakfast meetings? But if you're not familiar with Probus, I'm not sure how much dialogue we can have on that topic at the moment.
Yeah, we will have to educate ourselves a little more on that one. Thank you, though, for educating us and telling us more about it.
The reality is part of the strategic plan has action plan priorities, and it says that we should enter into partnerships and we should be external facing and we should look at these opportunities. So thank you for bringing that up. And I took a note, and then we'll look into that. I like it. So it's interesting. When Stephanie and I speak a lot of times at PETS, President-elect training seminars in different areas of the world, we often ask our president nominees, what are the things you want to do, learn about next year when you're going to be president-elect before you become president of your club? And, we always hear the top few things. We want to make sure that we figure out how to increase membership. We want to make sure that we can be good public speakers, and we want to be able to make change to our club, but we don't want to alienate certain individuals. You don't want to alienate any club members if you don't have to. So Rotary came up with a brilliant model called Rotary's Change Model. And when you look at it, it's symbolized by a wheel. The wheel is making progress. So we're going to talk about each of these steps. And the first we've been talking a little bit about is the assessment. Then you go through design, then you build, implement, sustain. And then when you're successful with that change, then you assess again and see what other changes can make. It's interesting because at one of our president-elect training seminars, we wanted to have great impact with these president-elects. We wanted them to leave with an idea of a change they were going to make so that they can actually implement that change and have a better club as a result of it. So the last exercise of the day, we went around and we asked those president-elects, what one change are you going to make? And some of them were profound, some of them were less profound. And one people thought was silly. And it was, we call him Troy. That was his real name. And we asked Troy what change he wanted to make. And he said he wanted pie for dessert, which of course everyone laughed because they thought, well, how is that going to change a Rotary Club? So anyways, a few years later, we ran into Troy and we asked him if he got his pie, and he did get his pie. But a funny thing happened. He said that one change, which most people really liked, made people feel like it was okay to bring him as the president other changes. And so it turned into the second largest club in that district because they changed from a culture of we're not going to try anything new, we're just going to do the same old, because they don't want to alienate anyone. They changed that to a very innovative culture. And so they kept making changes and the club got better. So of course we start with trying to find out what the problem is, what the issue is. And the best way to do that is an assessment. The entrance interview, whatever member satisfaction survey you want to do, and of course the exit interviews, because you want to understand what the problem is. And you want to find out what desired outcome your club wants. So when you find out what it is and the issue that you want to change, you have to paint a vision for success. Because when you're moving this through, you don't want to be the only person making the change. You want to make sure that you bring your president-elect along with you, your president nominee, and the influencers in your club. But if you don't paint that picture, you're not going to be able to bring them along. And it could be you read about something in the Rotary magazine, or it could be a club next door. But you got to say, okay, club, this is what we're going to look like when we're done, and it's going to be much better. For example, if it's increasing membership, we're going to have more hands to do service. We're going to have more smiling faces at our meetings. We're going to have more people to raise money for TRF. And this is also where you decide what tools are needed. So if you're moving from an in-person club and you're in the part of the country, let's say that you're in Canada and US, like this district is, you may have snowbirds that go down to Florida. So you might decide, instead of having in-person meeting, we're going to have a hybrid meeting because those snowbirds might want to zoom in. Well, you're going to decide that, well, maybe we need an owl camera. Maybe we need a mixing board to make sure the sound works. So you do that during the design phase. And then you go to the build phase. Now, the most important thing about the build phase is you have to come up with a communication plan, and you have to start telling people, why is it going to be better? Now, if it looks like you're getting a lot of resistance, you can go back to the design phase. You know, there's different kinds of ways in order to make change. And you can mandate the change and say, okay, we're going to do this. I'm president, and this is the way we're going to do it. Well, our experience, Stephanie and my experience, is when you make something mandatory, it doesn't work. What you want to do is you want to have consensus. So when you're sitting around that board of directors table, maybe it's better to have everyone give the thumbs up. And if some people aren't giving the thumbs up and it's a sideways thumb, ask them why they're a sideways thumb instead of the thumbs up. And through that way, what we've discovered is when through the process of building the consensus, you actually make the plan better because you're addressing these issues that some of the naysayers have. So build that communications plan as you're building this. Then you have to implement. The most important thing about the implementation phase is to nurture the members that are resistant to the change. Stephanie, can you share your Byron story? I just love that story.
Yeah, in my first club, when I became a member of that club, there was a man, his name was Byron, and I came to find out that he had been the treasurer of that club for 34 years. Oh my gosh, what a mistake. I mean, that, you know, our club, we should have said, Byron, you know, you've done such a great job. How about put a manual together so that we can pass this job on to someone else? And we'd like you to do the flag project, or, you know, do our gala, or get involved in our golf outing. But we let the man have the job of treasurer for 34 years. That's not really a good strategy. There are so many people in our clubs. We really need to share leadership opportunities and allow other people to have access to those kinds of jobs.
Thank you, Stephanie. So it may seem easier just to ram a change through, especially when you believe in the change, you know it's going to be helpful to the club. But we really want to nurture those members. It might take a little bit more time, but it'll pay dividends in the long run. So then you don't want to go through all this change and not have the change last. I mean, from Rotary International, from its presidents, like Stephanie is working with President-elect Gordon and Rotary International President Jennifer Jones, to make sure that we keep focusing on polio, that we keep on focusing on mental health and in empowering women and girls. It's important to do that in your club too. You know, when we talked about Troy, you know, the first thing we asked him was, do you still have your pie? Because after a few years, you know, we have a great model of governance because you have that new energy every year. You give it your all as president, you give it your all as district governor. Stephanie is going to absolutely give it her all as Rotary International president. But after that, you know, you have to step back and go back to your club and, well, not a step back, it's a different job and you can lead in different ways. But Troy had his pie, and the reason he had his pie is because he brought in the president-elect, he brought in his president nominee, he brought in the influencers. If you're trying to make change by yourself, that's like pushing a wet noodle. You got to sustain. Okay, so after you do all that and you have the successful change, then you have to do another assessment because it's been a while and new people have come, and some of the changes you made may have come up with other ideas or other changes that need to be made. So Stephanie, after we make that change, we need to get buy-in again, don't we?
Right, which is, you know, important enough for us to talk about it again. And what it simply means is, you know, getting all of the members in your club involved in a discussion about what you've uncovered as an issue, what you are suggesting as a solution, and listen to their opinions and their ideas, because it is so important to make sure that everybody is on board so that you can have the right kind of outcome.
Absolutely. So Now we get to come to our most favorite part of any presentation, and that's where we answer your questions, because we want to make sure that you leave with the knowledge you came seeking. So, Mike, are you going to be the one that goes through the chat and shouts out the questions, or are we raising hands? How do we?
I can do that if you want. Sure, Tom.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
What kind of questions are surfacing?
Stephanie, you may have done such a good job that there aren't any questions.
I think so.
You can either enter your questions in the Q&A panel or in the chat panel.
Yeah. And David, I'd be happy to talk about grants anytime. I have 2 grants going before my district committee today, so I can feel the pain. So happy to talk anytime. And that was a joke. It's not hard to get a grant passed. We just have to work on it and make sure it's sustainable.
Well, the bottom line of, what Tom and I have presented today was making sure that we understand how important the culture of not just our Rotary Club meeting, but all of our Rotary events happen to be. And, Tom mentioned in the presentation, that it's important to get to know your members as they come in the door. Because when we find out who they are coming in, what are they interested in? What attracted them to the club? What might they want to tell us that we can't find on their application? When you do that, you're better able then to select your speakers, your projects, your grant applications, the work that you do. And you're not going to every single time hit on every single thing that's important to every single member, but you're going to do it from time to time. And that's where people find the value in the membership. It's when we neglect that important element that people begin to say, why am I even coming to Rotary? I'm really not getting out of it what I wanted. So it's a way for us to match what we do in our Rotary events with the expectations of members. And people join Rotary for different reasons. I was like Paul Harris. I was looking to meet people, fellowship, because I had become divorced. Paul Harris was lonely. He was in a new city and didn't know anybody. He didn't start Rotary to do service. The service came later. But some people do want the service. They hear about all this great stuff that we do for our communities in the world, and they want to roll up their sleeve and come in, and that's fabulous. Some people look at us and say, look at all those business people. If I were part of that club, I could probably gain some knowledge. There's so much expertise, and that's true. Other people, same thing. They look, business people. I have a business. That'd probably be a great place to network. Absolutely. So for whatever reason, people come into Rotary, the more we know about their reasons and their expectations of the experience, the better we are able to tailor what happens so that we can help them get the value that they're expecting.
Stephanie, you couldn't be more right. I mean, we talk about this club experience because we work so hard in recruiting members, whether it be younger members, whether it be recently retired members. But if we don't have an experience that is welcoming and they don't feel like they belong, they're going to leave. And Stephanie, as a recovering attorney, I can tell you that maybe if Paul Harris wasn't an attorney, we'd have more than 4 founding fathers. Maybe we'd have 24.
So, Tom, Steph, we've got a couple of questions from Lori. What about younger people that want to join or volunteer but find the structure of the dues to be at odds with how they see volunteerism?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad Lori asked that question because we hear this question a lot. And the reality is there's different club types and different club models that can be set up that aren't focused around that fixed cost meal. I mean, most of our young professional clubs, they split off of a host club where they're meeting at night or on the weekends, and they meet at a bar where there's not that obligation for the fixed price meal. And you don't have to meet 4 times a month. Rotary only requires 2 meetings a month. So we can structure it. We need to go to them and create a club, help them create their own club that meets their needs. Let's face it, we have 1.42 million Rotarians. That includes Rotaractors. But if we had more club types, we'd have more Rotarians.
And
My
to Stephanie from Dennis Dinsmore. Stephanie, as the architect of Rotary's strategic plan, what steps are the International taking to grow membership?
We're interested in advancing the action plan and getting it into the club level. That's how we're going to grow. At the RI level, the corporate level, there have been numerous changes already. Rotary as a corporation has embraced the action plan and has started to create, through the foundation as well as the RI side, a lot of different programs that come directly from the action plan. One of them is programs of scale. When we talk about increasing our impact, they're moving to programs of scale. Think about the first one was to eradicate malaria in the country of Zambia. Think about that, an entire country. All right, so programs of scale are a direct result of looking at the action plan. We need to do that now in our clubs. There is not going to be a sheet for all of the Rotary 47,000 clubs in the world that will say, do this and this and this and this, and you're going to be in compliance. Instead, we need every Rotary club to look at those 4 priorities and talk about them internally and how they make sense for your club locally, because Rotary is done differently in different parts of the world. Regional adaptability is a real thing. The way you do Rotary in District 6330 is not the way that it's done in India or Africa or Great Britain and Ireland or South America. It's different. So we really, as long as our core values, fellowship, leadership, integrity, diversity, and service stay in place, as long as our principles of the 4-way test, the object of Rotary, are fundamentally sound, it doesn't really matter how we do Rotary. What matters is that those things stay in place and we do it the way they want to, the people want to have it done. My club recognized that we're in a community of 100,000 people, but we meet at noontime. We're missing all the people who can't get away at noon. We're missing teachers. We're missing doctors who have clients and appointments. We're missing retailers who have customers. So we also recognize that there were people who didn't want to meet at all. So we did 2 things. One, we changed our meeting time. We meet in the morning now. And we've gained 4 members since we made that change. And we started an impact satellite group. These are people that don't want to meet at all. They go out twice a month and they do service. And then every 6 or 8 weeks, we do a pizza, beer, and Rotary night. And, they come together and we share more information about Rotary, because we recognize, because they're not coming to a weekly meeting, they're not hearing about Rotary. And if they're new to the organization, they need to gain some knowledge about the structure of Rotary, what's a district, what's this acronym DGE, all that. So we do that every 6 weeks, but they go out and they do it on their own. Then if they want to, after they do the service, if they want to stop and have pizza and a beverage, okay, that's fine. They're invited to our club meetings, but they don't come. They're invited to our socials. They do come there because we generally have beer. But these are people that don't want to meet. And so, but they have the heart and the hand for service. So the impact model is something that satisfies and makes them able to do the magic of Rotary in their own way. So that's how we're going to grow it, getting the action plan into clubs and having every club decide how is that going to make sense for us locally.
I think we have a few more questions, but I think we're probably running out of time. So one last question, because a couple of people have raised it, and that's about, is there a resource to help clubs come up with the right questions to ask, to word them properly, to get the right information from their members?
So there is, if you go to My Rotary, we were talking about the assessment tools, and the best one is probably the member satisfaction survey. And what you can do with that is, if you pull it up and it seems like it's too much Rotaryese or too much legalese, you can just simply cut and paste it into a Survey Monkey and send it out that way. The most important things is asking them, what do they like about the club? What do they not like about the club? Now, be prepared when you do a survey, there's going to be about 5% of people, that's been our experience, that are either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with what you're doing with the club. But when you drill down into why they're dissatisfied, it's really a simple reason to cure. The biggest complaint we hear is, I don't like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make a 7:30 meeting. Well, the answer may be, if you have 70 or 80 people in your club, to form a satellite club. That's just 8 people who are still part of your club. They just meet, at night. We did that with one of our clubs last year in Monticello, in my district, because we had 8 school teachers and their club met on a Monday at a Best Western in Monticello, and worked for most people, but those teachers, it didn't work. So they meet on the same day. They just meet at night and they bring in pizza or subs. They don't even have speakers. They just kind of talk to each other and have a good time. So the key to all of this is flexibility.
Right.
So thank you for the question.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we could continue this conversation for a lot longer. Membership is at the forefront of most clubs, what they're looking at, their agendas these days. But let me take a moment here just to thank both of you, Tom and Stephanie, for joining us today. Membership is my jam. I love it, and I would love to think that I'm one of the spark plugs to help get membership going. And so I've been really excited and looking forward to you coming and speaking with us. And I'll be one of your DGs, Stephanie, the year that you're RA president. So I'm really looking forward to that, to working with you. And so on behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. We loved it.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. Remember to register for the district conference, and I'm sure that you enjoyed this presentation as much as I did when I saw it in Houston last year at the International Convention. So looking forward to seeing everybody at the district conference. And Tom and Stephanie, thank you so much again, and have a great day, everyone. And for our Canadian friends, happy Victoria Day.
Yes. May 2-4, we call it, Mike. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.